And let's focus now on the latest in the standoff between the U.S. and Iran. In Washington, the Senate began voting on a bill that would explicitly block President Trump from launching a military strike on Iran unless he first gets congressional approval. And the administration's policy also being challenged on another front. Reports that China has welcomed its first tanker of Iranian oil since the U.S. removed the waiver given it and 4 other nations. Now, in London today, U.S. Special Envoy in Iran Brian Hook defended the sanctions policies and said this.
We are trying to restore deterrence, to reestablish deterrence against Iran. We are also putting ourselves in a position where if we are attacked by Iran, we can respond with military force. But that is only if.
Let's go to Washington now and speak to Sina Azodi. He is a foreign policy advisor at Gulf State Analytics. And Sina, let's talk about that comment by Brian Hook today. He really sounded as if he was trying to make a warning to countries defying the U.S. sanctions. What do you think is motivating him to speak out so much now on that?
I think that what the Trump administration is trying to do is, as it has said, put the maximum pressure on Iran to what it claims to get Iran back to the negotiation table. But I think that what it's really trying to do is to, by imposing sanctions and pressure, somehow force Iran to surrender. And when it says negotiation, it really negotiates the terms of Iran's surrender with the to the United States. I think that's what the Trump administration is trying to do.
But we do see China defying the Trump administration reportedly with this taking in Iranian oil now. How effective is that sanctions policy be if countries like China are going to flout it?
Well, first of all, I think that China is concerned with its own energy security concerns. China is a growing economy, and diversifying its energy resources is imperative to its security. And it also has some sort of friendship with Iran. It's not an alliance; it's really a friendship. That it has helped Iran in the past to basically mitigate the impact of sanctions. But I don't think that China's decision to buy Iranian oil is to defy the United States, but really protect its own energy security needs.
And also, Brian Hook mentioning European companies. Now, we have seen some, of course, talk or reports of the Europeans trying to set up some kind of financial transaction system that, in essence, would let them make a end run around U.S. sanctions. How do you think the Trump administration might react to that? And do you think that Europe, in the face of perhaps retaliation by Washington, if Europe would continue down that path?
Well, the Trump administration has said that as long as this mechanism, which is called the INSTEX, is limited to humanitarian goods such as medicine and food, it won't have any issues with it. But it also has threatened to impose sanctions on the Iranian version of INSTEX, which is basically established in Iran to facilitate the trade between the two countries. I think the concern with Europe is not only preserving the JCPOA, but has long been protecting its identity as a European community, and not just jumping on the U.S. wagon when it comes to foreign affairs. So, well, as I said, it's protecting JCPOA and protecting its own identity to send a signal that Europe is a separate entity and does not always follow the U.S. foreign policy.
Right. And Sina, briefly, the Congress moving now to perhaps limit President Trump's actions on Iran. Do that have a realistic chance of doing that?
Well, I was just reading the news, and it seems that it failed to pass the Senate. That's my understanding. What we have to remember, though, is that the President of the United States has the constitutional authority for a limited-scale military operation, which I believe should not exceed 60 days. And any potential conflict, if happens, I don't think will be a large-scale invasion style like we saw in Iraq, but rather it would be a limited conflict, which the president, I think the President Trump, will do so anyway. But in the absence of a formal declaration of war by the Congress, I think he will be limited, as I said, in the time frame and the scale of operation.
All right, Sina Azadi in Washington, thanks for joining us.